Hey guys, welcome to a new podcast. It's entirely about CS:GO, and it doesn't have a name yet. My name's Jack. Joining me is Tom. Speak, boy.
That me. Yay, that me.
And well, for anyone who doesn't know us, we met online as all great couples do. Um, I think we should start off with talking about kind of our background in CS:GO, like how we got started, what our favorite players are, what our favorite lineups have been all time, and how long we've been watching. You start.
Alright, so I've been watching and playing for too long. I bought the game in November of 2012 because it was really cheap. And around 2013 is when I started proper playing and watching the games. In terms of favorite player, I think you should go first just because we're probably circling around the same two players, and I'll just take whichever one you don't say.
No, I think that's very inauthentic if we don't both say that we have the same favorite player.
Sure, I guess. I'd probably, I'd probably. It
Just,
hurts me
just
to
fucking
snub
say
one or
it.
the other, but I'll say Shocks just for old time's sake.
Yeah, yeah.
Just because when I came up in it, it's the same reason for one of my favorite lineups, which is like when I first started watching, that was the first player that where it made me like just fall in love with this fucking esport. Because uh, watching him on that very games team when he was just in absolute peak form was unreal. Like I think just for reference, like my all-time favorite thing was watching. It was a lower bracket final in like fucking 2014. I can't remember what LAN was. He was playing against Virtus Pro, and he goes like 32-10. But the crazy bit is, it's a 16-3 game, and he only gets like 17 kills in the first half, and like second half he just gets like 15 kills in 4 rounds, and there's just absolutely nothing they can do. Um, So do you want me to go into favorite lineup or your player or?
Yeah, you can go on a favorite lineup.
So mine's hard. As hinted before, I think I'd have to go with Very Games. That team, when they had Shocks, Scream, Existence, MBK, Smiths. That team. I think that was the first time where I was really looking at something where they're really exciting to watch, but also they had a really nice tactical edge and sort of to some degree shaped what I really liked about CS:GO, where it could be this game that was incredibly skill based, but also had these great tactics to it. The team might have been usurped by the Astralis lineup of Kirby, Device, Zipex, Glaive, Dupree, just because I liked those players for a long time, and I think they were the closest I've ever seen to my idea of like perfect CS, the beautiful game.
All right. Unfortunately, hate to be the one to like kill the whole embrace debate thing, but my favorite player is also Shocks. So I started uh I started uh I started playing. Uh, I got the game in like September of 2014, and the first tournament I remember watching was that DreamHack Winter 2014 major that LDLC won, and but I think the moments Shox really solidified himself as my favorite player was the tournament after MLGX games. Uh, in the grand finals, they played NIP, who they had just played in the major final previously. And on Inferno, on that T side, which was infamously difficult at the time, Inferno was super CT sided in that meta. And Shox, who I would later find out was not an entry fragger by choice, uh, he's just so good that he just like completely destroyed NIP on that T side. And at that point, I was like, "Hey, this guy's pretty good." And
Because when,
go.
sorry, go on.
Uh, no, you go.
I was saying. Also, yeah, because it's coming from Australia, the ping means the conversation sometimes get overlapping a bit. But like that was the wild thing about those things, is like Happy, because he is Happy, he took arguably the greatest French player of all time, probably the greatest French player of all
The
time,
greatest
off of
French player of all
his
time. Like I love me some
yeah.
Kenny S, but like for fuck's sake, man.
Yeah, he took him off his main role so Happy could do it, and then he was just like, I guess you're an entry fragger, Shocks. And then I think that tournament was where he really mastered that fucking idea of Happy just going like, all right, we're playing, all right, we're on cash. The strat is Shocks. You run out mid, and then you two bullet both of the mid guys, and then we're gonna go A, and that's pretty much it. And then he would do that, and they would go A and win the round. But like they would have CZs.
Oh man, CZs back in the day when they were $300. That was the good stuff.
Even
But
more
not
ridiculous now.
yeah, but not to get too sidetracked. So Shock's my favorite player, and I think my favorite lineup is probably that Astralis lineup that you were talking about with Device, Dupree, Kirby, Zipix, and Glaive. One of the biggest reasons is that for a long time I'd been a fan of Device, and he'd been incredibly unfairly maligned at being this big game choker, and he's one of the greatest players to never win a major. And in fact, some people who will go unnamed believe that he was not a top 10 player of all time because he had never won a major.
For shame.
Yeah, for shame. But and I think another reason that that lineup is really special to me is that we got to watch them win that major live in Atlanta. It was an incredible moment seeing those guys that had been tortured for so long finally win the big one.
And momentarily we were tortured in map 3, but it came out Millhouse. So
All right, so now that you have a general idea of where we stand on things, let's actually talk about our favorite player, because G2, in their infinite wisdom, has decided to bench him indefinitely from.
yeah.
So Shox is gonna have wrist surgery here soon, in like late March, I think like the 20 something, and
Yeah, I think that was it.
in the meantime, they're going to replace him on the G2 roster with Mixwell during a trial period. And the initial announcement of this was really weird. Like we just got this thing of, oh, he's benched, he'll be back. But then, Apex, good old Apex, he was like, no, Shox is never going to play for this team, for this lineup. Uh, and then that sort of got filtered out into Shox doesn't want to play for this lineup anymore unless they make changes. So like a roster move is almost guaranteed if Shox wants to come back to this team. So where do you stand on this?
So for me, I think I have to break it down as I sort of go through it and be like, well, did G2 need a move? And it's like, well, yeah, definitely did. Like it's been what, like 5, 6, 7 lands in a row where they've failed to win a playoff match. It wasn't as terrible as those stats could be because a lot of the time they were going out to good teams, like, or they were sort of making it close, but they just kept losing that quarterfinal over and over again. And at some point, you have to be like, you can't lose to every single top 10 team. Like, it's just not really good enough.
Especially with the talent that they have and the roles that they have.
Yeah, it's an all-time, like it's a top, like this is the kind of lineup where they should be contending for the top team in the world. So like I think they really did need to make a move. I think they thought so as well. Like it seemed to be that Shox wanted like the quote they used was drastic changes, whereas the other guys on the teams wanted changes but not that drastic. The one problem is we don't have all the information. I feel like we're only getting like little bits. Like apparently the main point where that made him be like, all right, maybe it's time to go, or they say that it was it was a mutual thing, was that he did not want MBK to lead. I don't know if that was because he wanted to bring in another in-game leader, or he wanted to continue in game leading himself. I'm hoping it meant he wanted another in-game leader because I don't want him to do this anymore. Because
Listen.
God bless him, but he's not an in-game leader. He's good at he's okay at it, but he's fantastic at like most everything else.
Listen, G2 with Shox leading is never going to be the team that we think of, that, at least the ones that we picture in our heads, where they're
Yeah.
the best team in the world. The best case scenario, we've already seen the best case scenario for Shox leading a team with that G2 lineup with him and Scream,
Yeah.
I think.
That's the one inexplicable thing is that he was the guy who, above all else, like, I guess Existence did it at one point, but he was the guy who unlocked Scream, which is really strange because you don't think of him as a great tactical guy, but he just knew how to get something out of Scream that no one else has ever really got out of Scream to that degree.
And
But yeah,
like,
I don't think he can do it with this team.
yeah, I just another thing that's been driving me up the wall is that the worst part about this G2 lineup is that we saw what they can do if they manage their money, which is their biggest criticism, and rightfully so, because they have one of the best operators in the world, if not the best, if he actually gets an op in his hands in Kenny S, and they just force buy into oblivion. They keep falling into this French trap of, don't worry, the pistols are overpowered. We can just win. We can just win pistol rounds. But at a
Yeah, it should
certain
be part of your game, not your game.
Yeah, it shouldn't be your whole game. Like you shouldn't be forfeiting your most powerful asset in Kenny S. Because right now I think Kenny is better than Shox, and I don't think that's a hot take right now.
Yeah,
But
I'd say in the very, very quite recent past, like last couple lands, Shocks is better because like Kenny's kind of fallen apart a bit. But I I I think that a lot of that makes sense because he's just, I mean, he's not been bad. He's just been like okay, like a standard pro level, which is way below his level. But that's because like he's an emotional guy, and there's obviously issues with the team, so he's kind of gone down in performance a bit.
yeah, I just don't I just don't want to keep watching this G2 lineup. That's my biggest
Yeah,
thing.
it hurts.
Like,
Because it's like this is the lineup that I've dreamt of for so long. Like, I didn't mention, but probably my third favorite team is that Existence and Kenny S Titan team. Like, I wanted to see these two star players together for so long, and it kind of feels like we were robbed of that because we never really saw it develop. We never really saw it under a good system where they were both able to bloom as players, and that kind of sucked.
yeah, I just think that this whole team kind of went wrong when Shox was the in-game leader and not the lurking superstar that we think he should be.
Yeah, as it's this whole team has just been disappointing. Even when they won, they would just come crashing back to earth immediately. But I think the other thing as well that I didn't like about this move is it is a trial, but I'm not super keen on Mixwell in this team because I don't really like Mixwell for me. I have a lot of issues with him as a player. Like I think he's really decent. Like he's a really talented guy, but my problem is to go a bit like talking what are like shock jock guy. It's like he doesn't show up in the big moments. Like whenever, like if you look at his time in Optic, like he didn't really do much with the European Optic. Like it was, but no one did anything in that. It was like
Yeah, no,
Mega's boy, and
that
then
team
everyone
was
else was shit.
that team was a mess just because they had like this weird mix of players and fucking having Freiburg as an in-game leader. Like that's just a
Yeah,
terrible idea.
they were just like, who can we get? Like we're the best free agents available right now. But like on the when they did have success on the North American one, he was always seen as a star, but I feel like he was quite inconsistent. Like whenever they were doing well, it was Rush was the main guy, and then it was either Naf going off back when he was like very up and down, but his peaks were high. Or Tarek, who was again inconsistent. Like I feel like whenever they had success, I wasn't looking at Mixwell. I was looking at all these other players doing shit, and for me, that's kind of worrying. Also, you sort of you have your star players on this team. Kenny and I think Kenny and Apex become the stars on this team right now, and it's Mixwell to me doesn't seem like the guy who can be more of a third star role guy, and he can't really be a star for me, so I don't really know what's going to happen. Not to mention that it's another player on this team who I feel like he's less versatile and more like tossing and turning between different roles.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know about I don't really know where to put Mixwell in terms of roles. All I know is that this G2 team needs a more passive player, and Mixwell is not that passive player. He's fairly aggressive. Even when he was opping, he was a fairly aggressive opper. So I don't, and he's never gonna get the op for two reasons. One, Kenny S, and two, they never buy ops because they never have money.
Yeah. And he's the one AWPer of all time who doesn't want to AWP. Like it seems
Yeah.
like we get all these different players who are like who want to come in and want to AWP, like shout outs to Pimp. And then like no AWPer really wants to give it up. But then this except for this guy who never wanted to AWP but somehow was always AWPing.
It's Mixwell's just a really odd player, I feel, to diagnose. I don't think he's very easy. I don't think he's very easy to analyze, especially since really recently he hasn't been playing much, especially
Yeah.
at lands. Which doesn't.
I don't know, man. I saw him get beat down by Team Belgium yesterday playing for Wallolol. But other other thing I'd say is, it's on this move. Where do you think Shox goes from here?
Uh, I have no clue because I honestly don't think Shock's gonna join G2 again. I just don't see it happening.
I don't either.
I don't think he and this core group of G2 players is compatible at this point.
I think they just can't make it. They can't make him work. It's the French. The French have always had issues with their emotional players. Like that's why it's always gonna be Shox or Kenny gets cut because it's like they're absolute like fucking savants at the game, but they're just they're emotional players. They play off feel. They can get tilted a bit easier, particularly Kenny. And the reason they're always shifting them is because they cause issues with these more rigid tactical, not necessarily tactical, but more conservative guys. Like even like Apex is sort of somewhere in between, but the rest of them are a lot more conservative. They don't get as emotive as those guys go. I think like the good thing about Shox is his English is quite good, so I think he could go to a lot of different teams. I don't see him moving out of Europe because French players never seem to want to sort of move, and and a lot of the time they like to stay within the scene. But who knows?
And
Like
also,
there's
why
always
would it? And
NA
also,
or wherever they've got money,
another
but like
reason is why would he go to North America? I don't.
money.
But like
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
the
you
way
can
we
get money
see,
elsewhere.
yeah, the way we see like the FaZe roster and how much they pay their players, like you can get money in Europe for sure.
Yeah, I don't want him to go to MV. Like that would suck
God
unless
no,
they really
please.
scramble that MV team and they just get the best of the rest, as in like who's in MV, who's free right now. The dream is just don't play with Smiths, please, and then get like Existence, RPK, whoever is salvageable from that mess of an envious team. Or what I've always wanted from FaZe is I wanted them to completely embrace the fucking all-star mercenary thing where every time a free agent is available, they cut the worst player who's not Carrigan and sign that guy. So like they cut Olaf immediately, hand shocks like a guy in fucking scrubs and a FaZe snapback, hands shocks a contract in hospital recovering from he's lying in a hospital bed for some reason, recovering from his wrist surgery. He hands him like it's terrible handwriting because his wrist is fucked, but he signs the contract and he just joins FaZe, and they just keep doing that until they have like Simple, Shocks, Nico, all the best players.
That's the FaZe dream. But
Just go all in. Fuck this half-ass shit. This is how you get wins.
I just don't. I just I hope that Shocks teams up with like RPK in Existence. The problem is I don't know what terms Shocks and Existence are on. All I know is that the last time they played together, I just don't see their styles being compatible. I think they're gonna butt heads too much.
I think to some degree, though I will say, whenever Shocks has talked about Existence in the recent past, he's been very, very positive in a way that he wasn't with some others. And it's not just like him being positive, like he was very negative when asked about Happy recently. Like he was like essentially like, why the fuck would you ask me that? Like, I don't want to play the blah, blah, blah. But like with existence, he's like, well, this guy's one of the best. He's so good at this and that, blah, blah, blah. Other thing I will say on interviews, going back to the phase point briefly, is I think it was like halfway through last year. I can't remember what it was on, but he was asked like because he was signing international players, and it's like if you could play with a guy who you haven't played with before, who would you play with? And the first guy, or the only guy I guess he named, was Shox.
This is
So
Kerrigan, to clarify.
yeah, Carrigan, sorry. But so I want that to happen because just like let's like give me a reason to like this phase team. Because I like some of it. Like I like Nico a lot, but I want to be able to get behind a team that's just gonna smash everyone.
I want a dynasty again.
I want to be happy about this dynasty.
All right. Let's move on to the Fnatic news.
More bananas roster move.
Yeah, like this. Okay, at least the Shocks move to me, like it made sense because like this thing wasn't working. They had to change something. But like
Yeah,
this Fnatic roster just won a tournament and beat the best team in the world. And Golden was not the problem. Golden was not a fragging liability, especially in that final against FaZe, which
absolutely.
I was surprised. Like there were points, especially in that Inferno map on that B site, where he got like 1 or 2 kills, and I was like, holy shit, Golden's not just like a bot.
Yeah, he was really good on overpass as well.
Hmm.
Like I don't think his stats were necessarily great, but again, like that, he had these rounds where he would just they would hit that site and it would be either be just him or he was isolated and he would pick up at least a kill, often two. Like looking at the stats, he only got like 13 kills on that map, but on that CT side, he was one of the guys who got them those because they only got 8 CT rounds on that map.
Yeah, which was
But I was gonna say, but like the thing for me with Golden is that he was the word I think of in his fragging is absolutely serviceable.
yeah,
As like it sounds mean, but he is definitely a serviceable fragger. And when they brought him in, they put full confidence in him. It's really a model for what I want more teams to do. Is even pull up like a promising in-game leader, put all your faith in him, rather than just like making some veteran or whatever do the job. Because it's just historically, it's not really gone that well. And I think they knew that. Otherwise, they would have made Flusher the in-game leader like the past team.
yeah.
But it's it's just such a strange move because he made this team. Like he absolutely made this team. They've been way better, and even they're way better than what they were before. And the thing for me is like, let's take out let's call them outliers. Like the tournament they just won and the tournament where they went 0-3 bombed out. They
Yeah.
were consistently getting playoffs, like often top four, like really quite a decent team. And that's why it's so strange to me that they're changing because they were going from just being a mess to being a really consistent, really solid team,
What's even
and they've just booted him.
what's even stranger is that they're bringing in Exist, a player that you and I both don't like, especially as an in-game leader.
Yeah, because the one thing I will say for Exist in this move is it's a notable increase in the skill department. Like I think Exist is a pretty decent player. Like he's definitely not a star, but he can come in and do a quite good job as like your fourth, fifth best player, or I'd say fifth best because JW's been a bit all over the place. But
Yeah, I
bringing
don't.
him in is definitely I think it's definitely a notable skill upgrade. It's just like he's not up to the standard of a top 10 team in-game leader, and I'm assuming he has to in-game lead because like why else would they bring him in?
Yeah, it's really weird. Like I think like there's I've got a lot of questions in terms of Fnatic's in-game leading because
Yeah,
obviously we don't know if it was just like only Golden in-game leading, if it was like a combination of Golden and Flusha leading. Because if it was a combination of Golden and Flusha leading, it kind of makes sense from a leading perspective, just because like Exist has some experience calling and you can split the duties between him and Flusha. But as a general rule, I prefer just like a solo in-game leader so you have one unified voice. Because we've seen dual in-game leaders just be fucking messes, like that
yeah.
Cloud9 team with Sean and Cephas. What a fucking mess.
It's like go B, no A, like
No
just
A and force
completely.
buy.
Yeah, no, yeah, buy CZs and go A.
But
But
this move just, especially since Exist hasn't been like great lately. Like the last time I feel like Exist was a a really decent player was probably like 2016 because he's been shit in 2017.
Yeah, it's the only times he would like he had no length whenever he was good. Like whenever you look at the tournaments where they won, like those really big outliers, where like they won Oakland and that sort of thing, it was always like people on the comments would be like, "Oh, it's good to see Exist doing well." It's like, yeah, but these are the only tournaments where he does well. Like
Yeah,
these are the outliers when he's a serviceable player. Like he's just not working in this team. And like I think he could definitely frag better than he was then, but not whilst in game leading.
yeah,
Because that's the thing that it's such a detriment to him as a player to in-game lead, but he's also not good at in-game leading, so he's just bad at fragging and bad at in-game leading at the same time.
it's like the
Like
C's
let's at least
situation.
have him good at one. Yeah.
It's
Now we get to see if in-game leading broke Exist in the same way that it just broke C's mind, and now he just can't use a mouse anymore.
he's just like locked up in an insane asylum, just like rocking back and forth.
Just imagine like this awful, sad montage of like C's trying to join a pug and he can't even click on the accept icon. He just keeps scrolling or swiping past it.
Ugh. Oh no, I can't miss the queue.
No, you can. They let you get away with that in FPL still.
Oh damn, that's wild. Anyways, speaking of seized and teams that he once in-game led for, let's talk about Navi at Star Series.
Oh, I
Uh,
just wanted to say quickly to not to ruin that great segment is the great what's it
segue.
called transition segue. That's the word. Um, I think Golden can go to a lot of places from here. Like Nip, any Swedish speaking team would be dying to have him. Even I don't know how good his English is, but I think it's like the future is bright for Golden because he's come in and shown that he can do something. And I doubt. I feel like the personality issues because I've never heard of any stories of him being toxic or whatever. The only thing I could see was that at that tournament it was really a bit weird because like especially in the final, Crims was raging a lot. And even at some points, Flusher, which seems really out of character. It's not really something that he
Um,
seems to be pretty chill. But even like at points,
I
he was like punching the
hmm,
desk and all that shit.
I don't know. I think that
There's something wrong with the team,
I think the
clearly.
rumors. I think that like hasn't it been like known that like Flusha does rage, but like he's not as expressive with his anger, or maybe I'm
Yeah,
thinking of someone else because I know that old Fnatic team used to rage all the fucking time.
oh yeah, that like Rockstar Fnatic team.
Yeah.
Like, or even going back to the Pronax one, like that's why you would hear about these like oh my goodness, like they completely turned that game around after the tactical pause. Like what could Pronax have done? What tactics did this genius pull out? And he was just like, yeah, just calm down, just think about just go to your happy place for 45 seconds, and then
Just like
next round Olaf run out plat, and then just like headshot three guys, and then they would win that round, and then the next like five and win the game.
all right.
Apparently, they would just sit there in silence.
Yeah.
Fucking
I
sound.
don't know. I think Golden should probably make a move to Nip if anything, because
Yeah, I would love that.
like I don't know how to feel about like Rez or like I think Draken's okay and they need an opera anyways, so I wouldn't get rid of
Yeah,
him. Get right in Forest. You can't get rid of them. Um, but like I think there's definitely a spot on that team for Golden, and I think he should.
yeah.
And I think if Nip are smart, they give him an offer because they need
I mean,
that.
yeah.
I think they need that leadership because neither of those veterans want to call.
The
Uh,
only time they've looked tactically decent was whenever Threat was more or less calling and like just you could see him pulling the strings above Exist's head whenever they were playing.
yeah, and you can't do that anymore. Thanks, Valve.
Nice one.
All
Nailed
right,
it, boys.
let's move on to Navi, and more specifically, the best boy, probably the best boy in the world at the CS:GO, Simple.
Yes. Beautiful, sweet, sweet Ukrainian boy.
Man, like, uh, I think that Star Series LAN was the first LAN that I'd watched in a while, just because I'd been kind of disinterested. Like, I didn't even watch much of the major, to be quite honest. But like, watching Simple play at that LAN was a real, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a real shock to the system, because He's so fucking good at this game, man. It's unreal.
It's so insane how good he is. Like there was that one line of commentary where he did something, or like he did something for like the 6th round out of the last like 8 that was insane, and Henry G was just like, you're not, no one's meant to be this good at the game. Like how can you be this good? Like this is probably one of the best hard carry performances we've ever seen in this video game. Like it was taking me back to that like Shox playing that 2014 LAN where he was just doing whatever he wanted to do, except Simple wasn't doing whatever he wanted to do. He was doing what he could do in spite of what Zeus was allowing him to do.
Like it's also nice for Simple because like he did get help from Flamey for a lot of that tournament. Like Flamey
That's
was
true. Flamey was decent. He was
yeah,
not the problem here at all.
no, not at all. And that's been a criticism of me of Flamey recently. Like he hasn't been playing up to that level that we saw in like late 2015, 2016 from NaVi when they made the back-to-back major finals.
Yeah.
Under
Even in
under
2017, I think he was quite decent towards the start.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. When they when they when they went 3-0 in the group stage and were the favorites to win the major.
Yeah, it was a wild ride.
That was
Because I will say for that Navi team in 2017, I think they got hard done by. I don't think they're as bad as people think.
no, they
The
just
times when they peaked was like that New York land that Simple won them and that major, because they were like, the problem is their direct counter was Astralis, and they would run into Astralis at every single
yeah,
like LAN in
yeah,
almost in the first round or second round. So it's like they would just get fucked, and
yeah.
everyone would be like, "Oh, you're not good." It's like, well, no, like that's a really bad matchup for them in maps and styles, and it's ruining everyone's idea of them. Like they would have gone deeper if they drew pretty much anyone else. They had
Like
I think they would have had a
Team
better
Liquid or
chance
some
against.
shit.
Yeah, like the gods of CS just hated Seized.
Yeah, but another thing about that Navi team, Electronic was kind of underwhelming at this event,
Yeah, I would.
especially in that final, like on that Mirage map when Simple needed help. Like Simple got like 40, I think he had like 40 something kills during that map, including overtime, and like who is it? I think Edward was kind of there with him, but like no one else was close. And
Yeah.
if like Electronic and Zeus give you just anything, if Zeus isn't just a robot who gives you 8 kills, they win that map and they win the tournament.
Oh, if it wasn't for that round where Zeus got 2 like ridiculous bullshit kills with a CZ, like that would have been hands down the worst performance I've ever seen from a player in a final. But like I'll say Electronic, I'll give him a little bit of a break just because he's coming into a new team, and I think he's nervous because this was like his first proper final. Because like
Yeah,
you ain't doing shit with Flipside, boy.
yeah. At least he's
Like,
free of flipside hell. Like
oh yeah,
that's
at least we got him out. Because I think that kid is so good. And the thing for me is part of it I blame a lot of this on Zeus because he looked tactically inept, and
oh yeah.
Electronic's an absolute machine. Like I kind of blame him for not using him a little better.
Like
But
Electronic fits this team really well too. He's a really stable fragger.
yeah, especially on Mirage, like we've seen him put in some of his all-time greatest performances. Like I remember that one for Flipside where he just decided that Team Liquid, this was at the qualifier for it might have been E-League Atlanta, but he just decided that Team Liquid were not going to the major and the Flipside were going to win this game, and he just
I think it was
completely
Krakow.
locked on him.
I think it was
I think
Krakow
it might have been,
because
yeah.
Liquid was definitely at the E-League major because the
Oh,
device
that's
just
yeah, you're
shit
right.
all
I
over them.
remember. I remember that game. Yeah, the 3-2 game.
Yeah.
But that time, that's when I like when I saw him like, yeah, this guy's fucking legit. It's because he just tore them apart on that A site Mirage. Like every time they went there, he would just take 2 or 3 of them, and they couldn't do anything about it.
Let's talk about like how we can fix Navi. There's obviously the dream is just like cut Zeus and get Angel.
Yeah,
Like
I want
that's
to
been out
see
there
a CIS
forever.
stream team. I want to see a proper CIS stream team, but that involves like Gambit, that involves. It's like not all these players of CIS region, but it's like close enough.
Yeah.
I think we need a proper team. Just just get Angel out of that literal like contract he signed with the devil. And because I think the thing for me is that if you look at this core of players, if you can't win with these cats, with Electronic is really good. Like Flamey is playing well, really, really good player. Like again, like they're two pretty stable players. And I think Flamey's really developed. And then on top of that, you have Simple in one of the highest peaks we've ever seen from a player in CS:GO. The most, like, I think in terms of raw talent, he's maybe the best ever in this esport. Like he's unreal, and you can't. And I can understand. Like I would be fine if they lost to FaZe, if they had a good showing, but they beat FaZe, and then they lose that final to Mouse. Like I don't know what to say about Zeus if you can't win that game. Like you really have to be able to beat Mouse Sports with that amount of talent.
The worst part is, during that final, especially on that Mirage map, I think it became evidently clear that playbook isn't very deep for Navi. There was that
Oh
one
no,
point.
yeah.
There was that one point in overtime where they ran the same smoke mid go cat strat 3 times in a row, and like the first time it worked, good for you. And then Mouse was like, "Oh, you're gonna run it again, beat it. Oh, you're gonna run it again, beat it."
That's why Chris J had like the best performance of. I think it was Lurpus tweeted that was, or it might have been Lurpus. Someone tweeted this is like the greatest map that Chris J's ever played because he was playing short. Because they would just do that and he would kill 3 of them, or like he would get a free kill onto Edward every round because for some reason Edward was like, yeah, I'm just gonna dry peek into this AWP for like the 3rd round straight. Maybe he's not gonna be. Oh no, he is there. All right. Edward was, even though I think his at times his fragging was pretty okay in that final. Like he was just making some terrible plays.
Yeah, I think like at the core, I think Edward still has a place on Navi as a support player. I do.
I don't know. Honestly, I'd cut him. I think he's just, when I watch him play, like it doesn't feel like I'm watching the Edward that I was watching in like a year or so ago. Like it looks like he was broken at the same time as Seized. Like he doesn't seem good at the game anymore, which is like as stupid as that sounds to say. Like not as bad as Seized. Like Seized has just dropped off a cliff. Like Edward just doesn't. He just seemed to have lost like whatever he had that was getting him those good plays, good results. Because I really liked Edward in the past. Like I think he was a really decent role guy, but he's just, I don't know, man. Like I don't know if he needs a change or what, but he just doesn't look adept in this team.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to getting rid of Edward for sure, but
Yeah. Like I don't think he's not the first guy
oh no,
who heads
absolutely
on the
not.
line.
That's clearly Zeus.
He's definitely second.
Yeah, he's next on the chopping block. All right. Let's segue over to the latest LAN, IEM Katowice. We're gonna start from the team. We're gonna start and just go down the line of teams based on how they placed. So we're gonna start with the winners of the event, Fnatic. What are your thoughts on their road to victory?
So like I said before when we were talking about him, I think it was a bit of an outlier. Like the
Yeah,
thing for
Crims and
me,
Flusha had just like throwback performances.
the thing I will say is like I think Crims has been really decent in this team for a while. Like he's been absolutely going off. Like even that tournament, Star Series they bombed out of before, he was insane. Like his stats were so good for a team who did not win a single game. I felt bad for him because he's in absolutely great form. And I think part of that is when he's in a team that's well structured, he can just thrive. And because he was really good under Pronax, and he was really, I don't think he was particularly great when they had that lineup when they pulled in Dennis. He just made it work because he just had this incredible like natural chemistry with those players and Olaf. But I think he's the best player in this team. And Flusha was the one who really was a throwback because this team was all about Crims and Lekr for the most part. Like JW's been a bit meh. but this team was all Crimson Liquor, and Liquor was definitely decent, but I think Flush was the one who really, like, obviously gets the MVP, but he was the one who sort of came out of nowhere, put up like a really, really star level performance that came out of nowhere. And I think that's the main thing, is when your hierarchy of stars is upset, that to me kind of suggests that maybe this isn't sustainable. Like, we know this is a thing that's in Flush's locker, but to me that kind of says that this isn't what you expected to happen or what logically should have happened. But I guess there it is, you want a big land.
Yeah, like I think they'll take the hierarchy of stars being upset for a fucking tournament win. I think they'll take that any
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, it's just, for me, it's not. It's I mean, obviously now it's not replicatable, but I didn't think, like, I thought this, like I said before, this and the tournament before are kind of the outliers of what can happen. But I think their standard place is semi-final is their good day, and then like quarterfinals sort of their okay day. I'd
And then
expect
they
them to
could
make the
not make
most
it
of
out
the
of
time.
groups if they're in a hard group.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if
I think if this is a team that really would, that they would make it out of groups a lot of time. But I can definitely see, yeah, if they get a hard group and all. But they're the sort of team who, and part of this on Golden, like they really seem to be able to grind out these games
yeah,
where it's where they're up against it, even if it's a really decent team, they can just grind them out. Like, I think that's how they've had success against like G2 recently.
I mean also G2's been like dog shit and unwatchable,
Yeah,
but
that's true.
like we don't talk about
Because you
that.
win like 3 rounds in a row, and like Kenny just tilts, and everyone's like hates each other, and that's the game.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to FaZe. Uh, where do you think FaZe goes from here? Because they've just lost, I think, the last four finals they've been in to teams that they should have beaten
Yeah, it's either it's something like that, or like 4 out of 5 finals, and yeah, they were favorites in pretty much all of them.
because
Um,
they're the best team in the world and they should have won them.
Absolutely, yeah. I so for me, it's like this. I think some people are a little harsh on this, because it's one of those things where people are like, they got to win. And when you look at the maps on this final, like, I do not see them. So yeah, Cash, Inferno, Overpass, Mirage, Train. For me, Cash and Mirage are absolute locks. Like, FaZe cannot lose those maps. Like, they smashed Cash, and Mirage was kind of close, like 16-11, but they absolutely win those maps. So for me, it's like, a lot of people are saying, oh, they have to, like, they should just 3-0 it. They're favorites on every map. And it
No,
was like, the
they're not
fact they let it
favorites
go
on
to
any
five
map
is not good. But what I would have said is, like, I think Inferno I would have given to Fnatic, because they're quite good at that map, and FaZe are a bit inconsistent. But I think they should have won it. I think they should have won it in 4, because for me, the big map that changed everything was Overpass. Because yeah, like Inferno, like you did it close, but Fnatic took it. They're better on Inferno tactically. But Overpass, they lost 16-7, and that
Yeah.
that was their second pick.
And like
And
they had
they
no
just,
answers for Fnatic's T side at all. Like they just got straight
yeah,
banged out. They had
because they
no
had a
answers.
really good T side.
Hmm. Yeah, getting
Because they
7 rounds
just,
on Overpass is pretty decent, to be in all honesty.
and you would have had them mentally fucked, because as we were saying, they were a team where they were tilting, like there's clearly issues in that Fnatic team, and Fnatic had a good start, and then FaZe just woke up on that T side and went ham. Like, Guardian had that like incredible 1v5 where Fnatic just decided they didn't want to win the round anymore. But yeah, they should have won that map. I don't understand, because they're quite a good Overpass team.
Yeah,
Like, Fnatic are okay at it, but FaZe are one of the better Overpass teams, and I think that's kind of been their downfall, is like FaZe's map pool just kind of disintegrated, weirdly enough. Like, Cash and Mirage they're great at, and then like there's Inferno, Overpass, and Trainer, all maps they're just pretty good at. After like they could usually count on Overpass. They used to be like insanely good at Inferno for a brief amount of time. They just won every Inferno, but once they lost those, like, that's where they've kind of dried up.
yeah. I think this has been kind of discussed a lot. Is that FaZe's map pool is very overstated because they only have those two elite maps, and for a team that talented, you should probably have more than just like two elite maps and then like three middling maps. Like I don't think
Yeah,
I don't think that with what you have, you're allowed to have like you have to have like 3 elite maps, I feel, when you have that many good players, especially with players that can fit a bunch of roles.
Yeah, and as a team, because they're pretty loose, like I think they don't even necessarily like have to be elite at tons. They just have to be quite. They have to be like quite good. Like if they can just be really good at like 5 maps, which is definitely doable for them, that'd be great because the performances they can do sort of make up for that to some degree. Like I don't think they have to go quite over to what. Like I think of that Astralis team when they were the best team, and they could play 6 maps, and they were really really good at like 4 of them. And I don't think they have to be quite that. But yeah, there definitely needs to be more from this phase team. And they're to say, like this wasn't. It's not like they were shit.
No,
Like
they made the grand final.
Fnatic are really good. And yeah, this is the thing. The standards are. This is like this team is vying to like this is a really special team. Like this is like it's really exciting. It's a historic team, just based off what they've done already and what they'll do in the future. But yeah, losing this final is a big issue. And yeah, they were really close to winning on Train. Like the round that everyone's seen a million times when Flushed gets that ace in the 2v5, there's like that should have if it's even like I saw that clip like if Olaf was playing on 16/9 instead of 4/3, they win that round.
And you still haven't switched 16/9, just for the record.
I'm on 16/10 at the moment.
But,
But
but the real question is, would Olaf have seen him on 16/10?
I'm not sure. That's the question. This is how we fix face.
I think we kind of have to talk about Nico too, because especially on that like overpass map, Nico was just dog shit, like absolute fucking trash. And
Yeah, that
like
hurt.
you and I have been defenders of Nico in big games, because early on when he was in Nico Sports, like he got unfairly maligned, I feel, in playoffs just because his team was just crap and he was playing super good teams. And
Yeah,
like if
he
you're the
he was the theory of can't win with these cats.
yeah, and uh I don't know. I just feel that especially in like the past 2 finals, that major final and then this one, he's been very underwhelming. I feel that he should have put up better numbers and had a better performance.
I think in this final, like
That
I'd say
cash
there were
map was
maps where he
bananas.
wasn't good.
Like that first map, when I watched that cash map, I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Nico's just gonna drop like 20 kills in a 16-4 in a 16-4 win. He's hitting everything too, and he's just gonna go off the entire final, and it's gonna be a 3-0. Like that's what I saw when I first watched map one. I was like, "Oh, this is over."
Because I think statistically, like because I think a lot of people look at the kills and say like, oh, it was nuts. Like, but the thing for me is, I think he was the main guy that won them the maps they won.
Hmm.
But the first map was a stomp. Mirage, they were always going to win. Cash, obviously 16/5, you're always going to win that. So it's sort of he was the main guy for those maps, but in the maps that they lost, he was a little disappointing. Like that train, he was quite good, but yeah, like you're saying, overpass, he was really poor. That was like, and I think he was okay. Like he was quite good on Inferno, but I
He
think
was
that
okay.
was one of those.
He was really good that first half of Inferno. That second half on their T side, he didn't have it like any impact. That was pretty much all Olaf and Guardian on that second half.
Yeah, I think to some degree he did struggle on T sides because on Overpass,
Hmm.
like he was. I feel like a lot of the time he was trying to do stuff on B and he was just getting shut down. Like even I remember there's a round early where they probably win it because it's just Golden there and Golden pushes like Golden looks for info or something like peeks from short and just kills Nico who's holding the angle and it's just like, huh. Like
Really makes
that's
you think.
yeah, it was just a kill that you expect Nico to get because like you see some of these kills he gets where people peek into his crosshair and it's unbelievable. Like sometimes he'll just hold an angle and just tap one bullet when some guy runs in. Like he's an unbelievable player. Like it's crazy to me that that stuff wasn't working because he's usually one of the better guys when it comes to lurking outside of B
Yeah.
just messing around out there. And yeah, he was lackluster in maps, but I definitely wouldn't go with the narrative that some people are pushing that he chokes or that he's bad in finals. He was still like Like I wouldn't.
No,
He
he had his
obviously can be
moments.
better.
He had his
He can
moments.
be absolute. Yeah,
Yeah.
he can be absolutely better. But because he is one, like again, he's one of the best like 5 players in the world, probably top 3. He's the best player on this team, I'd say.
I mean, I
Um,
don't think that's a debate. Like, who's the next? Like, Guardian. Guardian's been really good,
yeah,
granted,
yeah,
but like, I don't think he can hit the peaks that Nico can.
yeah. I'd say, yeah, I'd say it's like definitely nothing to worry about with Nico. Like he's going, I think he's going to improve because like this kind of shit just makes him mad and makes him work harder. But yeah, he can be better. But yeah, the narrative that people are pushing that he's like a choker and stuff is going too far. And I think it's because like a lot of the time the scene wants to do that when a star player has issues. It reminds me of the NBA a lot, where it's like you win because you're a star or you lose because you're a star. There is no in between. It is always them.
Yeah, it's like whenever whenever the Clippers fail, it was Chris Paul's fault, despite the fact that he was the best player on the floor. But let's move on to the next team on this list, Astralis.
Sorry, the one thing I would say quickly
Oh,
though is Rain was disappointing for me in that
yes,
final, especially.
absolutely.
Rain has cooled off a lot. Like I think he's still like I still consider him one of the best players in the world, but he's really cooled off. Like I didn't think it was sustainable because I don't think he has that sort of elite level. He's just in that tier just below, like kind of where you put
Yeah,
like I'd
like
put him around the same level where you put like Dupree or something, where it's like he's
I think
really
Dupree
good
is
in
better than
real life.
Rain.
I would say that. I would agree with that, but I'd still put him in that sort of tier 2 below like the absolute gods of CS.
Yeah. Let's talk about Astralis then. I
Yeah.
think that Astralis are pretty close to putting it together
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
because I think Magisk was a pretty good addition, especially since they're going to switch Dupree back to a more aggressive role
Yeah,
in
that was the
Kirby's
fear about
absence.
losing Derby. Is like, if are they going to have the explosiveness still? And the answer is yes, because Dupree's still really, really good at the game. Like that guy's still an all-time great player, and I think that's the one thing that's kind of the the one criticism that some people say of Device is he is a bit passive, but for me it's like you can't be that aggressive with the ult. Like he can do some bananas things when he has a rifle and they need him to be aggressive. I think of that team he hard carried when they were just crap with Carrigan towards the later days, where he couldn't make Kierby work, and it was just Device like just going ham all the time. And he had that incredible year where his stats were great, but they were just bombing out in
Yeah,
every LAN, it seemed like.
I think
But yeah, I think you need Dupree to be that guy. And Magisk is a really weird player for me. Like he's really good at just he's one of the best at holding angles and spraying and just destroying people peeking into him, but he's not necessarily a passive player. Like I think he can he's a real like get you a man who can do both. Like he can really be aggressive, but he can also play that passive style where he just sits there, waits for you to come to him, and then just destroys you.
yeah, and I think that's where they need to build their strengths because Astralis, as they were trailing off, they had a real problem on CT sides. Like they would have to win 10, 11,
Absolutely.
12 rounds on T side just to win a map. And they needed more stable play out of their CT players. And Kirby is not a guy that you look for in stable play, especially because of his style of aiming.
Yeah,
It's too
like
jittery.
there were like he was straight up a liability at times on that team, and I think he was just like it was because I think Kirby's going to do well on North. I'll say that. Like I think he's going to be the focus and he's going to get his confidence back. And I think because you can tell from kind of what he said that he didn't feel super valued on Astralis towards the end. He sort of feels like he can be a star player, like one of the main. He can be the main guy or the second guy, and he really wasn't. Because there are times when they would like, especially on train, like they moved him off Ivy because he could not do it. Like he lost that mojo that he had like on that major final. Like he just took over train, the
Yeah,
major final they won, but he just seemed to slowly over the year lose it, and by the end he was, I don't know, it's crazy. Like he was just gone. And like you're saying, his style of aiming, like his first bullet is fucking insane. Like he has one of the best first bullets in the scene, but his spraying is just, it's so weird. Like I don't get why he does that shaky thing soon. Like you feel like some coach or in-game leader would just like slap him across the hand or something. Just be like, no, just fucking
I don't know.
shoot like a normal person, because
It's your
I
fucking job. Like, if you're not working on your sprays at this point, like, what are you doing?
like spraying's or shooting's already inconsistent in this game when you're just tapping and using your first bullet. So why would you make it worse? When so making your spraying like less consistent as well. Like his mid, like there are times where I just remember him like messing up mid range kills that he just should have got. Like it just should have been a kill because it's weird because it seems like he's not confident in his spray, so he just does this like shaky thing. So he's kind of like, oh, if I put bullets everywhere just to make sure it hits
I'll
him.
eventually hit him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really strange to me. Like I really rate him, but I kind of it makes sense for him to go. Like I want to know what happened with Config. Like you have to assume that Astralis either didn't want him or he was already signed up on a big buyout with Optic and they couldn't get him. It was too late for when Kirby moved.
I don't know what it is with config. I feel like Astralis is probably excuse me. I think Astralis is probably the team that probably looked at config's personality and like
Yeah.
you saw the talent upside. Like I feel that config is a much better player than Kirby in my opinion because I don't think Kirby can hard carry a team and we saw config hard carry North at times. But I don't think that Astralis needed that hard carry and I don't think they
Mm.
wanted the ego that came with. And I think Magus like they can make Magus work in that team just because Dupree can play like so many different roles.
Yeah, I think they've got a really good team culture on that team. Like the way those players fit together, they seem to get on really well. It's really positive, and you can see that they instead of kicking Kirby, whether this is a good decision or not, they wanted to make it work and retool and make that come together. And I think yeah, they were kind of like, can we make it work with this guy who's a bit of a hothead? But on the flip side, he is an elite tier player, and part of me wants to be like, just give it a shot. Like
Yeah.
I think that guy's absolutely unreal. But and I guess as well, like maybe I think Dupree kind of wanted to get back to his roles because he made it work really well as a lurk kind of guy, and falling back a bit in terms of the roles and giving all that stuff to Kirby, the entry like explosive stuff. But I think they maybe he's like, yeah, I want to go back to where I naturally, or what comes to him most naturally, and maybe that sort of factored in as well. Because Magus had this reputation as being a bit of a hothead, but he's I think he's definitely less so than Config, because Config
Oh
seems
yeah.
to, the fact that Config bombed out of North in the way that he did, where it just like something definitely went on there, and to cut your best player, like your head and
By
shoulders best
far
player,
too.
yeah, to cut a man who is not named AZ from North has to have something drastic happen.
Yeah. All right. You want to move on to the NA, more specifically Team Liquid? I feel.
Oh,
I think they're the big talking point here. Obviously, they
yeah,
got
I
they got
like them
that
a
dick
lot.
waxed by Astralis as they usually do. But
Yeah, they've always matched up poorly with Astralis, unless
just because
Astralis were in bad times.
Device just owns their souls. It's because they don't have anyone who can beat his opping presence, and especially now that JDM's gone. But uh, like let's talk more about Team Liquid because I think NAF was a really interesting addition to this team. Particularly
Yeah,
because like they never really used JDM well. Like Liquid's been where oppers go to die traditionally, and I think that getting like a pure opera out of the lineup is probably the best move for them. I could see them running a lot of like 5 rifle setups and making that work well.
yeah. For me, it's like the opera thing was really strange once they got Zeus, because I think that dude is in the conversation for the best coach in the scene. Like he's absolutely incredible. He runs his teams really well, and he's one of those guys who again he's like, get you a man who can do both. Like he can do that really good. He can do that what is any given Sunday speech, that like make a play that gets your dick hard speech, but he can also do the tactics, like the demo, absolute like demo rat sort of play. And I don't think there's many coaches. You either get one or the other,
Yeah,
or you get Smiths who's just like Shox's BFF, and that's about it. But you really usually only get one of those things, and to have a coach who does both is super valuable. Like, so many teams would kill to have him. So for me, it's like, it's surprising that he couldn't get JDM to work, because I think JDM's a pretty decent player. And I don't even think he was terrible, to be honest. Like, he was just good. Like, he was just like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
But he was definitely the guy who was first on the chopping block, especially because Nitro kicked it up and was moving into the in-game leader role. To me, this team, the one part of this team that I don't love is Steel. I don't get why Steel is in this team. Like, to me, this scenario plays out in my head where, like, something, like, it's like something happened where Steel or Zeus either owed him money or did some favor for him, and like when Steel when KNG just absolutely ruined that team and many other teams, Steel was like, I need a favor, man. And then like Zeus had to go to this team and be like, listen,
listen,
you
I
need
know.
me, motherfuckers. We're bringing in Steel. It's happening.
We got rid of that Stanislaus Snake guy. We're bringing in my boy.
This and I guess like you could have sold him to Liquid pretty well, because you're like, notice how all of you hate like Stanislaus is like awful to talk to, and none of you like he's just really like awkward and has terrible haircut.
What if we got a guy who doesn't understand what you say, so you don't have to talk to him?
What? That's true.
Like that's obviously not fair. He could, like, if he's playing in his team, he can speak English, of course.
Yeah, and it's like, what if you bring in a guy who you wish was your best friend, because Steel is the most likable man you have ever met. Like, to some degree, it might make sense, because Alige, not so much anymore, but he used to be a player who'd tilt. Twist, we haven't seen much of him. Like, I think he doesn't seem like that kind of guy, but Naf especially is the most emo guy. He's so fucking emo for how good he is. Like, if he got his mentality straight, I think he would have done a lot better a lot earlier on. So maybe Steel is good in that regard. Like, I think Steel is the kind of guy who can help that team culture.
Yeah, the glue guy.
I just don't get him. I don't get it to the degree that, like, I just feel like you could have gotten a better guy to play his roles. Like, I've been saying for a while that someone should take a risk on like Breeze or Breze or however you say it.
However you say it.
Because he's a good role guy. Like, by all accounts, he's a phenomenal teammate. Like, everyone loves him. Even guys who played with him in like Rank S are like, yeah, he's fucking such a good teammate. Like, I feel like just from playing him in Rank S, Day's team tried to sign him at one point. But yeah, I don't know. I love that it's worked out for Steel. Like, he didn't deserve what happened to him.
Oh no, absolutely not.
But yeah, to me that does make sense. But the rest of this team is great. Like, I think that hierarchy of Naf, Twist, and Alige is fucking insane.
All right. Can we just like skip over G2, because we already talked in length about their issues and stuff, and it kind of just boiled over this event.
Yeah. Other thing I will say about Liquid is I do think that their success is, so before I was saying like when the hierarchy of stars is changed a bit, like then you can have issues, because I think NaF is overperforming. This is not his consistent level. I think he's still really good. Like, he's looking like one of the best players in the world right now. I think he's going to cool off, but I think as that team works better as a unit, integrating him in, they're going to improve, as well as they had issues where they didn't get to practice with Steel as long as he was in the lineup, because they couldn't play with him at a bunch of tournaments. But I think Twist and Elite Edge will come up to sort of meet NaF as he comes down a bit, because they kind of cooled off a little bit recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that 3-man lineup, once they settle, of like NaF, Twist, and Elite, is just so much talent. It's insane.
Yeah, it's really weird saying about NA teams, like especially recently, because we've been in this place for so long where we don't consider the North American talents to be as good as their European counterparts, but now like we're finally seeing that come to fruition as these teams become more consistent.
Because a lot of it was that these guys who we saw come up are like, what an absolute aimer. Like, we would see these guys and be like, and we'd watch them stream and be like, how is this guy so goddamn insane? And it was about those guys understanding that for whatever reason, they just couldn't crack it. And they kind of took a took a step back and brought through these newer guys, or in I guess Naf's kind of an outlier because he sort of went to the background, developed, like grinded his way, like no in a much longer period of time he kind of Kenny-esque his way back, where he just like he got cut and he just grinded, worked his way, eventually gets back, and now he's really good. But guys like Nitro, or guys like Tarek to some degree, I'd say a lot of these guys, like the old guard, kind of
Yeah.
stepped back, and they brought through these few like young talents who are just absolute phenoms. And by mixing that together, it kind of worked. Like it's good because I hate the term getting thrown around at these teams, old boys club, but they to some degree, like upsetting that idea helped them a lot. Like I think C9 had that. It was beneficial, especially to them as well.
Yeah. All right. So we already talked a bunch about G2. Let's talk about SK. I think that
Let's, sorry, I think we should compare them to C9 first, just because
yeah,
North
yeah,
America.
that's fair. So obviously, guess what, guys? That major was a bit of an overperformance. Who knew? But like, obviously, our opinion on Skadoodle not changed. They need to get rid of him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the way forward. Like the thing about the major is sometimes I would say this particularly about teams that I liked, where it's like whenever they would have a good performance, it'd be like, especially G2, where it'd be like, oh, they're not going to fix their issues now, for
Yeah,
fuck's sake. Like, this is
yeah,
bad for them in the long run. Obviously, this isn't quite the case because they won a goddamn major, and that's obviously, like, they're going to be very, very happy with that. Like, you're going to be absolutely thrilled. Like,
especially since they're
that's
the
the
first North
thing.
American team in CS:GO to do it.
Yeah, like a lot of like, because for me it always seemed like it was a matter of time before the NA scene got it together and won one, because you just need to have a good tournament and they've got so much talent. But
Hmm.
I feel like in some ways it's going to set back their development because what Skadoodle did at that LAN he hasn't done since like what, like 2015
Yeah, probably. That's probably fair.
maybe. Like even when they won that LAN in Brazil, he was quite good, but he just played at the level of a good AWPer, which is like, this is what you're meant to be.
Yeah,
Like,
all the time. This
you
should
met
be
the
like your
standard.
normal
Well
level.
done.
Yeah. And like we
Yeah,
we
I think
like
it's
we have these
fair.
conversations a lot about like the role of ops in teams. And the op is an incredibly powerful weapon, and your
Yeah.
opper should be one of your best players, and like not your literal worst player. In the case of Skadoodle, because I think
Because
he's
even
their
with Liquid, I
literal
think
worst
he made
player.
it work. Yeah, I agree. Like, I definitely agree with that. Because I even think with Liquid not having a straight up AWP role, you've still got guys who can AWP to a strong degree and pull it out
Yeah,
when you need it. Because I think of the AWP as a tool, because it's the things like it can do completely unique things on the map, and the way you use it is very specific. And the like you need to have a really good player on it, because you can't get the most out of that tool if you're just giving it to someone else. If you're just giving it to an okay player or a
yeah.
guy who's not really feeling it.
Or Sean Gares, just to hold angles. Man,
God bless him.
there were
God
some
bless him.
there were some interesting times in some old C9 lineups. Just
Yeah,
absolutely wild shit.
I will say, if you give it to Sean Gares in like checkers on cash, he's insane. But everywhere else in the game, he wasn't good. But in terms of that C9 team, like I think for me, it's like Tarek's never been a consistent player. So when they won that major with him being the MVP, it was kind of like, I don't know about that. Because I really like Tarek. Like I think he, as a third star, he's really decent. But whenever he's your top guy, like I don't say it, because the other thing as well is like Stewie's really cooled off recently. And I think again, like I always come back to this like hierarchy of stars and the guys you have to run this team through. Like I think it
They're not
has
as good
to
as they
end
could
up.
be. Like
Yeah, I think it
I
has to
think
be
both of
Stewie
us
and
agree.
automatic.
Yeah, I think that we both agree that like the level of talent on like Team Liquid is much higher than the C9 team that just won the major. Like they have a much higher ceiling, especially now that they added NaV.
Um, I definitely say that they have a higher ceiling because of I think their tactical side. Like Cloud9 just do not have
No.
what Team Liquid has in terms of like their their coach is not like, again, their coach is apparently just a demo rat, and that's fine. Like,
Yeah.
it's, you can't get the guy who's both, but you have Zeus who can do both things. And I think Nitro is more experienced and just a better in-game leader. I think there's so much goddamn talent on this Cloud9 team. Like, I think Automatic, Rush, and Stewie and Tarek, those are all just great players in terms of what they can do individually. I would definitely say that Liquid are the more talented team, because I will say I think once the dust settles, Elige will again be the best NA player. But yeah, I think the leadership hierarchy, the structure is what's going to make Team Liquid be the better NA team.
All right. Do we want to move on to SK now?
I will say I want to give credit to Automatic. He's been unreal recently, and I really like him because he's that guy. Like, I think that he's what NA have needed in a star for a while, where he's not even necessarily the most gifted like star out of them, but he's the best player on Cloud9 right now. Like, I think it should end up probably. I don't know if he should always be the best player if this team's gonna thrive, but he's just so consistent, and it's that kind of thing where the reasons why I love Device and I really like Coldzera is these players where they don't even necessarily get the hardest frags, but they put themselves in the position to just get a bunch of frags, and
especially impact
make it
frags.
easy for themselves. Yeah, and that's like, because like Automatic, he's been good in like pretty much every series. Like even the ones they lost, like when they're playing against like when they got toured by Mouse Sports at Star Series, like he was unreal. Like, where are these stats? Like, yeah, he had like 61 kills over 2 maps.
Oh my lord!
And like the next highest over 2 maps was 37, and everyone else was like 30. like that. Yeah, I really like Automatic. Like, he's the exact kind of star that I think more teams need.
Okay. Do we want to move on to SK then now?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know how to feel about SK right now because I think that a lot of their players are kind of in slumps. I think Coldzera has definitely fallen off a bit. He's not having the same impact that he used to. I think Fallen's fallen off a lot. I think that Fallen like has little to no impact right now in this team. And I think
it's really weird. It's just all come crashing down.
Yeah. Fur's been like Fur can have really good games still because he's just such an explosive talent, but I think he's been playing a little bit too much PUBG. Like I don't like Taco has fallen off a lot though. Taco used to be the guy where he's like, he's not gonna light the scoreboard up, but he's still gonna have impact. He's still gonna win clutches, and he just has no impact in games anymore. It just feels like he goes AWOL.
Yeah, that guy, like, I like Taco just because he understands that he's like a workhorse. Like, he's just going to do whatever the fuck he's told. The issue is they've got Bolton now, who's he's kind of another Taco.
Yeah, they just have some role overlap, and I feel like they're missing something right now.
Yeah, I think like I wouldn't cut Taco, and I don't think they would. Like, I would definitely want to make a roster move on this team quite yet, because like, and I don't think Fallen would, because he likes having this guy who is more or less his in the server butler.
Yeah.
See,
like his leg, yeah, but actually good.
Yeah, like yeah, but good at the game, absolutely. But I'd say SK, because the thing about SK is I do feel like when people were seeing this team once they got Bolt and they won those events and they were beating FaZe, and everyone was like, is this going to be the best team of, like, the best SK yet? It's like, maybe, but the big issue was always that it was always that, like, they weren't smashing teams. Like, they never smashed FaZe, really. They were just, it was almost always going the distance, and they were close maps, and they were just shutting them out tactically, because you could see with FaZe that, like, they had an unreal game style, like, just absolutely insane when it comes to loose defaults going into an execute, just getting picks, individual play. Like, they kind of were, like, if you take the tactics out of SK, they did that style a lot, where everyone just goes to places on the map, and then you either wait for something to happen or you all do something at the same time, and all of a sudden you're in like a 4v2 and
And you're
you
just
can just go do
overwhelmed.
what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
you
from
can't
there,
really do anything. So
and
you're
from
like, oh, he's killed me from Palace. Oh, he's mid. Oh, it's boosted window. Fuck. Like,
and especially once SK gets those advantages, like you're fucked because they're still an incredible team in when they're man up situations.
yeah. The yeah, that's why it was nuts to me that series they lost to Astralis, because they had times where they lost like 2v4s,
Hmm.
because and part of that was because Glaive just did something insane.
Yeah, like
Or
all those both those times where he came up mid and like flanked the A site from connector. And
yeah,
like that second time there was that shenanigans with Cold Zero alt tabbing, but
yeah,
like you
it was
can't take that
strange.
round back. You can't take that round back just because there had been already been stuff happening.
Yeah, and I will say, like, we didn't, because I think a lot of people acted like, oh, he would have hit the shot he was ready for, but it's like he was very low and Glaive had the angle, so it was really whoever shot first wins there. So I
Yeah,
think that was like a 50-50 engagement, and then Glaive, then Glaive just goes mental and wins the round. But
yeah,
yeah, because SK, that's weird to me. Like that's why, like, to go back to our beloved Sharks. Like that's why when he like had that fucking final one two like two 1v4s against SK, it was really strange because SK are really good at just winning man advantages, especially on CT side. Like they're just good at closing you out. It's once you lose that first man, or especially if you're down by two guys, it's really hard to deal with them.
and like I don't know how they can improve this team besides like just getting like Cold Zero and Fur into form, because I think that Cold Zero and Fur are gonna have to take up a lot of the impact if their role players are not going to give them that extra
Mm.
boost that they usually get.
For me, it's sort of a team where when everything goes right, it's absolutely fucking insane. Like they're one of the best, like they're one of the all-time great cores.
Hmm.
But my
Sure.
main issue is the way that Fallen and Fur play is not super consistent.
Yeah. No,
Like,
that's what
and that's
like
fine. Like, you just need another consistent star to some degree. Like, I think you need Fallen or Fur, or I think you need Fallen to figure out a way to be a more consistent guy. And maybe part of it's because they're bringing in a new player still ish, but
I think it's to
I don't know. I
micromanage
don't
a
know.
little bit
I think
more.
it's been, yeah, I think it's been enough time where, like, I think Cold Zero and, like, because Cold Zero is always going to be fucking good. Like, he's never
Yeah.
going to be bad. He's always going to be consistent. Like, he's like, one of the greatest of all time, but I think the key is figuring out a way to make Fallen a more consistent player, because he was actually like really good in the series. They lost to uh C9. Like he was
Astralis.
one of the better players. Or yeah, that too. Like I think he was pretty good at this LAN, but because the issue is like Fur, you can't change Fur. Like you just need to leave him how he is,
No.
because if you try to change him, you don't want to ruin like the magic that he has. Whereas like, and that style's never going to be consistent. So like either you can't lose that style, you can't change him, whatever. So I think you got to make Fallen that guy, because I've this bolts pickup, I'm just not like, it's good,
It's like
but
the most pickup ever. Like it doesn't
yeah,
I don't think it puts you over the top in any sense of the word.
like I still think, because I understand they kicked Phelps in part because he didn't suit the team culture, but like that guy, I think it's pretty indisputable that he looks like the future of Brazilian CS, and I think eventually, like once one of these guys wants to retire, especially if it's Fur, which would kind of make sense because he had like medical issues and he's one of the
Hmm.
older players, but I think Phelps is definitely the guy that ends up in the best Brazilian team again. Like he's gonna go carry like whoever the second best Brazilian team is for a while, and then before he gets his chance in SK again. Like I kind of wish they tried to work it out more than they could, but I guess we don't know what happened fully. But I don't know. I think that guy's so good, and but I guess there wasn't really the guy who was available who was going to be a more consistent star for them. So Bolts was the best option they had.
Yeah, that's the problem because all your talents are from Brazil that are left over like really inconsistent or just like fucking mental in the
Like
case of
who
KNG.
it's like who are the best guys he could have gone? Like I would absolutely not touch the twins, because I think
No.
like Henny is one of the most overrated players, and I don't think Lucas is anything special at all. There were
Hmm.
rumors they were going to pick him up at one point instead of Phelps, and I was like, oh please no.
No.
But KNG you can't touch because you can't even guarantee he's going to be able to get visas, because it's just too much controversy
Like
around
he
him,
just
and
got kicked
obviously
off
he's
and
not
he
good
just
for
got
the
kicked off
team.
another team, and not only that, he got that entire team unsponsored.
Yeah, and also not to mention that he kind of ruined like so many teams heading into the last major. Like, how
Yeah.
many teams were playing with standards because of like the reverberations, or if that's a word, fuck, of what he did. Like,
Yeah.
it's yeah. I don't know what the way is for SK. I think it's just retool that team and work hard again, get Fallen going, and like I think they'll make it work. Like they're still a top 3 fucking team. It's the same thing with FaZe, where it's like we sound
Like
like we're critical, but it's
yeah.
because the standard we hold them to is all-time great.
Yeah. Like the interesting thing about this current scene is that it's pretty wide open. Like all the teams have like big flaws that they have to work out, I feel.
Yeah,
Or
it's
not,
a
or
really
big,
interesting.
if not big flaws that are big enough to keep them from just dominating people.
Yeah, that's why I think it's really interesting. Like, it's can FaZe be more tactical? Can SK work out their player setup and their fraggers consistency? Like, it's like a race to see who can have the error. Like, that's why it's a bit tilting about FaZe, because this is the time when you should be killing people right now. You should be
Oh
smashing
yeah.
people right
Like
now, and because SK, Astralis, the NA boys, like they're like they're not gonna be this inconsistent and flawed forever. Like, you don't have the time to waste right now. Like, this is when you need to win your tournaments, solidify yourself as an all-time great team, all-time great player.
mhm. Do you have anything else to say, or should we just move on to any other attendance that you want to talk about?
No, I think I've said all on SK. Like, still good, but I will say as well, like Cloud9 is a bad matchup for SK because they're just really explosive and they are very good at being just a real pain in the ass for teams that are a bit more tactical. Not that SK are super tactical, like they definitely have more tactics than Cloud9, but not as much as like Astralis or
Yeah.
North or the Danish boys. But they're like Cloud9 are just really explosive and good at that, and they seem to match up really well. And that kind of burned them a little bit.
All right. Do you want to switch to some segments,
I'm just trying to see if
or do you want to
there's
talk about like
anyone else want to talk to.
Renegades were at Katowice, right?
I don't like talking about Renegades. Like, I'm trying to see if there's any other notable teams there. Because no one else was
Oh,
really
Heroic was there.
notable.
You want to talk about Yugi, your son?
Yeah,
Free Yugi.
I,
God damn it.
yeah, I want like I'm really kind of upset that he hasn't had his chance, because I've been saying for a while he's a future CS. Like, I was looking at, I was kind of like combing through like old tweets recently and looking like he is the future of well, he's part of the future of Danish CS. Like, it's a bright fucking future. Like, their best players, like Device is like 22. Weirdly enough, like this, the best player is like just so young. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of Yuki. Like, I really want him to get into North, because to me he was the obvious replacement
For Cajun.
for Cajun. But the issue was like Mertz is on your academy team, so just try him out instead of spending the fuck ton of money you need to get Yugi, because Heroic won't let him go because he's by far their best player,
He's the
and
only
it
thing
was a
keeping
real
him
pain in
relevant.
the ass to get him. Like, yeah, it's like the pain they went through to get him on a contract or get him out of that contract he was on before and signed to Heroic was like really, they didn't have much fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you actually I'll say I like Heroic right now. Like, I think Rabino is a really solid signing because he's a consistent player. He like I like him. Like, I really think he shouldn't have been cut from North back in the day. Like, I'm glad he's getting his chance.
hmm
But yeah, I think Yugi's the guy who has to end up. If Mertz doesn't work out, he's absolutely the guy who ends up on North. Like, I've been a big fan of him for a long time. Because I think and the thing about Cajun is he could do everything Cajun did in terms of being that passive op, and he could be aggressive. So like, to me it was like, because I've seen early in Heroic he was a lot more passive, and now he's very aggressive and he just kind of does what he wants. So for me it's like he could do everything Cajun could do but better, and he could do all the stuff Cajun can't do with an op. So it just, I don't know, it just seems like a fucking slam dunk pickup if you can get that money going eventually.
Yeah, I just don't see why he hasn't gotten a chance yet aside from money, because
Yeah, I
he's
think it is.
obviously the next best opera in Denmark.
I think it sucks for him that Device is an offer because I think he would be like there's a good chance he ends up on Astralis when Kirby leaves if Device is an offer at that
See.
point or Device goes to a rifle.
All
I
right.
think that if Mertz wasn't on that academy team and like the one fucking good player on that academy team, realistically, like he gets on North, like the poor guy.
Like let's talk about the best operas in Denmark. Let's see. Obviously, number one is Zipex. Number one.
Yep,
Um.
absolutely.
Then
He's in fact an offer.
it's I guess Device, like maybe. Uh.
I don't know,
J-
Glaive's been picking it up recently.
yeah. Yeah. He's just absolutely nuts in just like random FPLs. Sensational.
I don't know. Last night I was watching Pro League and they had a whole where they had it was on Inferno against G2. They had 3 players B. They had Device and Glaive with Ops, and then Zipex sitting on top of oranges.
This is
So
the
that was
future of
pretty good.
setups. This is how
Yeah,
you do it. It's
this is
the new
yeah
meta.
is my all-time favorite in-game leader. That's why Glaive is all-time favorite IGL. He's just changing the meta, redefining how we play this game.
All right, speaking of online matches, let's debut our first segment, Nuts and Pugs, where we just talk about the dumbest online shit. I think the first dumbest online shit that comes to mind is Space Soldiers, 15-0ing G2 in a half.
Yeah, that was upsetting.
uh, okay, I've got a real question for you. Is
Mhm.
LAN the default state of a team, and online just like the powered up version of Space Soldiers, or is online Space Soldiers the default, and then LAN just like absolutely like guts them?
There, that seems so weird. Like because the place they sit in the scene is so upsetting. Like I think part of it as well is that G2 are one of those teams where they've been around for so long, most of those players, that it is hard for them to get it up for online games. Like they're not quite Virtus Pro tier, but you see it among like all the best teams, or sometimes like they just don't give a fuck. Like it seems like they've just come back from a night out, like they raced home in an Uber to like be like, fuck, gonna play this Pro League game, boys. Got like 2 minutes of aimbots in, and then just jumped in the server. Meanwhile, like Space Soldiers were like fucking conditioning themselves.
Watching online demos.
They had hearty meals. They're fucking in that solid like half-hour deathmatch, half-hour of aimbots, like doing their KZ training. Like, they build up for it. They're like their coach gives them like that any given Sunday speech, and they get in the server and they just go to ham. But like the thing that's always weird about Space Soldiers is you see a lot of people talk about how good they are in terms of their players. Like I think it's like
What? That's
for
the
me it's
weird
like
part. Like,
people say they're so talented, and also they say that like that Major like should get like I've been seeing a lot of people saying Major should get moved because he speaks French. He should move and IGL one of the French teams. But to me, it's like if you have a good in game, like a really good in game leader and really good fucking talented players, like how's your team not working? So like for me, it's I'm trying to think. Go back to your question. I really don't know what the fuck this team is. Like
I don't think they're an enigma. They're just
they're
like nobody
so
knows.
fucking good online. They're so good online. It's insane.
Like I don't know if like all the servers for Pro League are in Turkey or something. They just have like
There's
five
someone
ping. They have LAN ping to the server, and then it's just not fair when they play on LAN because everyone has the same ping as them.
back before they signed the Facebook deal, like they were really stretched for money, and they're like, servers in Turkey are so fucking cheap right now. And
They just
yeah,
like
they
made a
just went
backdoor
ham.
deal with Erdogan. We'll censor Facebook if you just give us 6 servers.
No, yeah, they're like he's like, bring me and his canter, and and Space Soldiers will never lose again APL game again.
And man, Enos Cantor's been missing lately. Like I haven't seen him around in the Knicks.
That's true. I haven't seen those impact rebounds.
Uh, so uh, let's uh, let's switch gears a little bit. Uh,
We'll say quickly in terms of online nuts and pugs. Nuts in pugs. The most nuts in pugs thing recently, as has been for a while, is Asian teams playing against any Australian team who has like 13 to 15 rounds, where they just go ham, win, and then just win the game. And it's really fucking upsetting. Like, I just watched Tainted Minds throw away a game. It just continues. It's painful. Like, Australian CS is in the best place it's ever been right now,
and it still sucks.
outside of Renegade. Yeah, it still sucks. It's so upsetting because like there's guys I rate. Like, I'm a huge fan of Texter. Like, I like Sterling. I like a lot of these players, but yeah, they're still just getting bodied by Asian teams as soon as, or just choking. Like, if for some reason it's an entire nation of like players who choke. It's unreal. Like, how we don't have one guy who has a solid mentality? Just one.
I think this confirms my suspicion that Australia is just full of betas. They're just fake alphas. I think.
I don't know, just because they're so used to just like fighting off like fucking just the wildest of animals.
They
Like,
don't know how to deal with the real wildest animal. Man.
the real wildest animal, Asian CS. Asians on like 90 ping. Like, Bentet fucking comes around the corner and on 90 ping, you're fucked. Like, I love that. Like, I love that guy. But dude, these in like other online as fuck. Well, I guess they're not anymore. Fucking Indonesians, man. I played a retake server against them, dude, and it made complete sense why Xcurate and Bentet are killing it right now. They're nuts.
Listen,
Their future sucks.
I'm incredibly pro Indonesian. I had a very good time in Indonesia, despite the fact that I got deathly ill. But like that happens every time I travel internationally. So like, it's par for the course at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, you came back and like fucking suddenly you're just dropping 30 every game and something in the water there, and it's fucking hacks, dude.
I tell you, they were born to play CS.
Yeah, sell him up, Poggy, my boy.
All right, so we're a new podcast, so we're gonna do anything we can to get new viewers, which is
absolutely.
a segue into our segment. Please watch the podcast.
Yes, please
So let's talk about the latest hot button issue. I think it's your turn. I think it's your turn to pick one.
Yeah, so we were thinking, yeah, we got to boost these for the people who decided to tune in to like an hour in. And
Oh no, we're an hour and a half in, buddy.
oh, God bless. All right. So I was thinking like what gets views nowadays, and I was thinking ranting about Arsenal Football Club gets us views. So first question, are you hashtag Wenger in or hashtag Wenger out?
You're asking the one person who watches like the least amount of Premier League football of anyone. All I know is that Swansea is the best team in the league, and they always have been.
That's true. Swans.
Let's see. I'm gonna say Wenger out just because it says Wanger. It just sounds like Wanger out. That's my take.
That's a strong take. I'm gonna say Wenger in because they just broke a 4 or 5 game losing streak. They won a game. So
Did they beat like Crystal Palace or some garbage team?
I think I can't remember. I think it was a relegation candidate. I think they were like a bottom 5 team. But
honestly, like
on their current trajectory, gonna win.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. No, nowhere to go but up, as I always say.
All these fans need to look on the bright side.
Except Pierce Morgan, keep yelling on Twitter about Arsenal football. Like that's
I
your
mean, he's always been a glass half full kind of guy to me.
Like yelling at J.K. Rowling on Twitter and also yelling about Arsenal football on Twitter are like peak Pierce Morgan brands.
To be fair, I do support yelling at J.K. Rowling on Twitter in person.
Trash author.
Yeah, she sucks at writing books. So yeah, to anyone listening, see J.K. Rowling, just have a yell at her.
Yeah, just
give her a quick screaming.
Point her in the nearest like creative writing workshop. Maybe she'll learn a thing or two.
Yeah.
All right, that was Please Watch the Podcast.
And a Ready Player One.
Oh no! Fuck. Oh, I saw this one giant. You saw that giant bomb clip, right? Where it was Dan Reichert, and he said, "Super Smash Brothers is the Ready Player One of Nintendo."
Listen, man, if it inspired logic, it can
Oh,
inspire us all.
fuck. Don't get listen. We can only have one hot button topic on Please Watch the Podcast. We've already got three. We already
We can
mentioned
relate.
Arsenal football, J.K. Rowling, Ready Player One. I don't want to go down this logic train.
Fuck, dude, that's true. We need to save this gold
Yeah,
topic
we're
for
ruining
next
our own
week.
material here.
Yeah,
All right,
that was like 3 episodes worth of uh three 3 episodes worth of this segment of Please Watch the Podcast.
all right, and the last segment that we're going to talk about. What are we going to call this podcast?
Yeah, this is honestly the hardest one.
Yeah, like
This is the hardest
this is one
topic
where you actually have to get serious.
because I feel like a lot of them are named after like puns or janky mechanics in the game, like
Pika's
I
advantage.
guess counterpoints is a pun, or yeah, Peeker's advantage. Like, so my initial thought was like something along the lines of "fuck the CZ."
Uh,
Please, God help me.
I was thinking along the lines of something about being brainers,
That's true.
because we are in fact brainers. If we were aimers, we would be good at this game.
If we were aimers, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, exactly. Those who can't act teach. Those who can't play CS do a podcast about CS.
Or yeah, we're not good enough to we're not good enough to like snake our way into a team. So
We're just gonna talk about the teams that are good.
yeah, and criticize them without them being able to criticize us. Got
That's
that
right.
private Steam profile, bitch.
Hey, listen, if they have no game tape on me, they can't criticize me. I'm unknown. Like I have unlimited potential if
That's
you never
that.
watch me play. By by
That's
the
true. That's
by the
true.
way, I haven't played in like 2 months because Monster Hunter is like the best game I've ever played.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like why would I play a shit game like CS when I could play Monster Hunter and be happy?
That's a strong point, dude. But yeah, that's also a good way to keep your game tape secret. Like
Yeah, just never
one
play.
time, one time, Yam joined the retake server I was in. I just immediately left, dude, because I can't have him leaking that shit.
Yeah, you gotta get ready to just bust your resume out and surprise everyone. Make him
Absolutely.
force him to make snap decisions. Then they'll make the bad decision and sign you.
That's true. Because yeah, if I can just get into one of those Virtus Pro contracts, ooh,
Ooh, you're set for a while, man.
because no one is buying me out from that, and I'm not taking I am not taking, I'm not letting them get like I am just gonna sit there. I will play. I will go to any LAN you want. I will play any LAN Virtus Pro require me to, but I am definitely not leaving that contract. I would like $25,000 a month. That would be very nice.
But I really don't think we can call this podcast the CS:GO podcast with Jack and Tom. I don't think that's gonna
No,
work.
I don't think we can.
But we might be able to call it the CS:GO podcast with Tom and Jack. I think you might be down for that, just because your name comes first.
Oh, that's true. I prioritize my coverage first of all. We could also call it the follow Tom Sada on Twitter podcast.
Ooh, nice.
Just change that name because my old one was nonsense.
Oh yeah, the shrimp dimension.
Yeah, I was like, I need some vowels
This is a rebrand. This is the Tom rebrand.
for rebranding for a brighter future.
We really do have to think of this name though.
Yeah, this is really hard.
Yeah,
This is
we probably shouldn't have made this a segment. We probably just like should have come up with a name before we hit the record button.
um, this is gonna cut down to this is gonna cut down to 30 seconds of just gold, of just being like, what about this? Yep, nailed it. Other news, apparently Stephen Hawking's died.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Are you fucking serious?
I opened Twitter to see if I could get some
Holy shit!
information.
What the
Stephen Hawking died.
fuck? God damn! He just wrote a. Didn't he just write a? I don't know. Never mind. That might have been a while ago. What the fuck?
I know it predicted I, I know he had some pretty grim predictions, but he another brainer who wasn't good enough at CS to join a team.
Are we gonna have to name our podcast Brainers in honor of Stephen Hawking?
I think maybe to commemorate Stephen Hawking.
Yeah, maybe just like one episode though. Like
Yeah,
change it.
this episode will be called Brainers. Please help, we're not good enough at the game.
All right. I think this podcast is now called Brainers Help We're Not Good Enough at the Game.
I wish I could play for a pro team who
Oh,
wasn't Virtus
ooh,
Pro.
that's strong. I wish we could play for pro teams.
I wish I was good at the game. That'd be a good one.
I think that's a strong candidate.
I feel like it's gonna end up with just an incredible brainstorm where we're just like, fuck it, this one's okay.
Yeah. It's just gonna be like the most underwhelming choice. It's gonna be like, fuck it. We've been talking about this for like 30 minutes.
I'm a big fan of my pun for my like name on Twitter was 808s and B fake.
Honestly, do you want to just like change your name and then like make that the podcast title? It's like that's actually good.
I think that might be it.
I think we made it. All right.
It's underrated album. Underrated album.
I actually haven't listened to like that much 808s. Like I listened to some of the songs for that Kanye Madness bracket, but like other than that,
oh yeah,
it's just a really good album name. Like it might be Kanye's best album name. Honestly.
That's true. I like that. I like that bit of behind the curtain talking about some of the production there. Just 808s and Heartbreak, the two biggest parts of that production. Yeah, I honestly, like, because of that Kanye thing, I got the bracket I got back into. I listened to it like 3 times in the last 24 hours.
Wow, that's something.
I really like that album.
I haven't had time to listen to any albums because finals are terrible and school is gay.
No. Just say you're studying up for the podcast. You're just watching demos.
That's true. That's right. I don't go to school. All I do is watch CS:GO.
That's honestly just me.
All right.
It's just my life.
All right. So I think we finally decided on the podcast name being 808s and B Fake. All right. Thanks for watching, and I'll have an outro song maybe later when I figure this out.